There are moments in life when the silence is deafening, when you scream inside but no one hears, when the weight of your battles is too heavy to carry, and even your own reflection feels like a stranger. It's in those moments, when you feel most abandoned, that heaven leans in closer than ever before. You see, God doesn't always shout through the storm. Sometimes he whispers in silence. I'm strengthening you right now. It was a cold evening in early November when Aria stood barefoot on the tile floor of her tiny kitchen. Her eyes were hollow, fixed on the unpaid bills scattered across the counter like dead leaves. The flickering light bulb overhead buzzed a tired rhythm, casting shadows that danced like mocking spirits on the walls. Outside, the world moved on. Cars passing, people laughing, life happening. But inside Aria's apartment, time had stopped. She was 33, once the golden child of her family, a university valedictorian, a dreamer with ambition, the one everyone believed would change the world. But dreams fade fast when reality has claws. After losing her job during a mass layoff, her life had unraveled piece by piece. The savings she once bragged about had vanished in survival mode. Her so-called friends? Gone. Her parents? Disappointed and silent. And the man she thought would stand beside her forever? He left the day the lights were first cut off. Aria had reached the edge. She wasn't angry anymore, just numb. The kind of numbness that wraps itself around your bones and makes even breathing feel optional. She dropped to the floor, hugging her knees, eyes staring at the ceiling like she was waiting for it to crack open and pull her away. God, she whispered, her voice cracking. Where are you? No thunder, no wind, not even the warmth of an unseen presence. Just silence, but something stirred, not outside her, inside. A tiny flicker, barely there. Not hope exactly, but resistance. She didn't understand it. She wasn't trying to fight. She had given up, but still, something inside her was saying, stand up, just once more. She pushed herself off the floor, like it was the hardest thing she'd ever done. And it was. She poured herself a glass of water with trembling hands. That night, she slept without dinner. But she slept. Morning came with no miracles, but also no disasters. And somehow that was enough. That was how it began. Not with fire from heaven, but with the quiet power of not giving up. Over the next few days, Aria started doing something strange. She wrote a single line in her journal every morning. A line she didn't even believe yet. But it felt like it had been planted in her heart by someone else. God is strengthening me right now. It sounded foolish at first, delusional even, but as the days passed, something shifted. It wasn't her situation. It was her spirit. She started taking long walks to clear her mind. No headphones, no distractions, just her and the world God created. The first time she noticed a yellow butterfly landing on a bench beside her, she smiled without realizing it. It felt like the first real smile in months. Soon, she was applying for jobs again, not with desperation this time, but quiet faith. Every rejection still stung, but she didn't collapse like she used to. She whispered to herself in the bathroom mirror after each one, God is strengthening me right now. One rainy afternoon, as she waited at a bus stop soaked and shivering, an elderly woman approached her. She had kind eyes and a voice that sounded like old hymns. You remind me of my daughter, the woman said gently. She had a hard time, too, but she made it. Just don't stop walking. Don't stop talking to him. Before Aria could respond, the woman pressed a crumpled card into her hand and walked off into the rain. It was a church flyer, small, worn, almost as if it had waited years to be passed on. Aria didn't usually go to church. Her relationship with faith had become as fractured as everything else in her life. But that Sunday, she walked into a building she'd never seen before, and something unexpected happened. No one judged her. No one pitied her. The pastor didn't preach doom or demand money. He simply said one thing that hit her like lightning. God isn't ignoring your pain. He's using it. He's building a new you from the ashes. Tears fell silently down Aria's cheeks. Not because she believed everything, but because someone finally said something that made sense. God wasn't abandoning her. He was strengthening her. Quietly, silently, relentlessly. In the weeks that followed, Aria found a job at a local community center. It wasn't glamorous, but it was something. She helped children with homework, organized food drives, and served tea to lonely seniors. It was in those small acts of service that she began to understand something profound. Her pain had made her tender to others. Her wounds had taught her compassion. She wasn't the same Aria who once chased success like a trophy. She was becoming something deeper, stronger, and strength, she realized, didn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, "You're still here, and that's enough." One night, months later, Aria sat by her window, watching the moonlight spill across her worn wooden floor. The apartment hadn't changed much. She still had to budget every penny. She still walked to work. And she still had nights when tears came uninvited. But something had changed. She no longer asked, "God, where are you?" Because now she knew. He had been there in every silent moment, in every breath she chose to take, when quitting would have been easier. He was in the whisper that said, "Write that journal line," in the stranger at the bus stop, in the church she stumbled into, in every small victory she thought no one saw. He was there, and he was strengthening her all along. This wasn't a story about sudden blessings or magical answers. It was about quiet endurance, about becoming, about discovering that the breaking point is often the building point. So if you're listening now and you feel like Aria once did, lost, forgotten, invisible, hear this. You are not alone. This is not the end. God is strengthening you right now. Not tomorrow, not next year. Right now, in your tears, in your confusion, in your silence. He's shaping a strength in you that the world cannot steal. So don't give up, not today, because your story is still being written. And the next chapter will show why you had to endure all of this. It was a cold evening in early November when Aria stood barefoot on the tile floor of her dim kitchen. Her eyes, lifeless and heavy, scanned the scattered pile of unpaid bills on the counter. Each envelope felt like a silent accusation, a reminder of everything she'd failed to become. The refrigerator hummed softly, almost mockingly, since there was barely anything inside it. One flickering light bulb overhead sputtered out its last breath, plunging half the room into darkness. Aria didn't flinch. Darkness had become a familiar friend. She used to be someone, a woman of plans, of goals, of passion. Once the pride of her family, first-generation college graduate, top of her class, even featured in the local paper as a young change maker. But real life, as it often does, had a way of grinding dreams into dust. She'd been laid off nearly a year ago. Promised job interviews never materialized. Savings vanished into rent, medications, and basic needs. Her circle of friends evaporated, one shallow excuse at a time. And the man she once called her forever? He walked away the moment her bank balance hit zero. And now, standing there, she was wondering what the point of all of it had ever been. Her knees gave way slowly, like surrendering to gravity's will. She slid down to the cold floor, back against the counter, arms limp by her sides. Her throat tightened, but no tears came. They had dried up days ago. She stared up at the ceiling, as if expecting something, anything, to appear. Her voice was barely a breath. "God, if you're still there, why am I like this?" Nothing answered. No sign. No warmth. Just silence. But somewhere deep inside her, so deep she almost didn't notice, a single thought drifted upward like a fragile feather. "I'm strengthening you right now." She frowned, not because she understood it, but because it made no sense. Strengthening? This? Sitting in her darkness, with an empty stomach and a life that looked like ruins? She shook her head, angry at her own imagination, but still the word stayed. That night, she slept on the couch, wrapped in a blanket of exhaustion and uncertainty. And yet morning came. It wasn't magical. The sun rose like it always did. Her world didn't change. But something in her had. A thread, thin, almost invisible, but strong enough to pull her off the couch and make her walk to the bathroom, brush her teeth, and open a window. That small breeze on her skin felt like a whisper, "Keep going." And so she did. She found an old journal she hadn't touched in months. Its first few pages were filled with ambitious dreams, quotes about success, bullet lists of plans. Now it felt like another lifetime. But instead of closing it, she flipped to a blank page and wrote, "God is strengthening me right now." The sentence looked strange on the paper, disconnected from everything real. But it was something. The next day, she wrote it again. And the next. Days passed, slowly, but each one brought something tiny. A moment of calm during a walk, a smile from a stranger, a free coffee from a local shop when the cashier said, "It's on me today." All seemingly random, all seemingly small, but they were lights. She started walking more, not with purpose, but to escape the four walls that felt like a prison. On one of those walks, she passed a playground and saw a boy pushing his little sister on the swing. The way he protected her, laughing while being careful, made something stir in her. That childlike purity, that invisible strength. "I'm strengthening you right now." It wasn't her voice, but it wasn't someone else's either. It felt like the truth, cloaked in mystery. A week later, she applied for a part-time job at a community library. It wasn't glamorous. Minimum wage. No benefits. But she got it. She shelved books quietly, watched people come and go. And each time a child smiled at her, or an old woman asked for help with computer, she felt needed again. Human again. One rainy Tuesday, a little girl with tangled braids and oversized shoes looked up at her and asked, "Do you believe in magic?" Arya smiled faintly. "Not really." The girl shook her head. "You should. My grandma says when things are really bad, that's when God is closest. That's when he's making you strong." Arya felt her breath hitch. Later that night, she sat on her bed, knees pulled to her chest, and stared out the window. Rain tapped on the glass, like fingers trying to get in. She closed her eyes and whispered the line again. "God is strengthening me right now." And for the first time, she believed it. Weeks passed. The library job led to conversations. One woman connected her to a nonprofit that needed volunteers. She started helping with food drives, supporting shelters, and tutoring kids. In every face she helped, she saw a fragment of herself, lost, scared, searching. Each time she gave to someone else, she felt something strange return to her. Not money, not recognition, but power. The kind of power that grows in silence, in suffering, in surrender. Her family noticed. One evening, her younger brother called, just to ask how she was. That hadn't happened in over a year. Her mother sent her a card. No apology. Just, "Proud of you. Always have been. Just didn't know how to show it." She didn't cry. She just smiled, because she realized something. The world hadn't changed. She had. Her circumstances were still tough, but they no longer defined her. She was walking taller, speaking stronger, smiling with depth, not pretense, because the woman who once begged for an answer now was the answer. She no longer needed proof of God's presence. She had become the evidence. Late one evening, as the wind howled outside and the power flickered again, she sat with a candle lit beside her and wrote a new journal entry. "Thank you for not answering the way I wanted, because if you had, I wouldn't have discovered this strength I never knew I had." That strength wasn't loud. It didn't show off, but it didn't break. It didn't quit, and it whispered again just before she fell asleep, "I'm still strengthening you. Even now,